Buying tickets to sports and concerts can be complicated, but there is a better, simpler way to buy with SeatGeek. SeatGeek is the smartest, easiest way to get tickets to live events. With SeatGeek's seamless mobile experience, you can buy and sell tickets in just 2 taps. SeatGeek helps you find the best seats at the best prices, fully guaranteed. There's nothing quite like seeing your favorite team or musician in person, and SeatGeek will get you closer to the action for a great value. I have the SeatGeek app on my phone, and it's by far the easiest way I found to shop for tickets. I could be anywhere, and with just a few taps, I can instantly find seats. I actually used SeatGeek to buy tickets to go see the Marlins and experience the whole thing. It was fantastic. SeatGeek is designed to make your ticket buying experience easier than ever. SeatGeek saves you time and money by searching multiple ticket sites to compare prices and find amazing deals. Plus, every purchase is fully guaranteed, so you can shop for tickets on SeatGeek with confidence. Best of all, my listeners get $20 off their first SeatGeek purchase. Just download the SeatGeek app and enter promo code Bomani today. That's promo code BOMANI for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase.
Hey, I'm Jack, host of the new comedic news and pop culture podcast, The Daily Zeitgeist from How Stuff Works. A little bit about me. I've listened to almost every episode of Stuff You Should Know and Stuff You Missed in History Class. I'm the co-founder and was the editor-in-chief of Cracked for the last 11 years. And our show is basically the day's news and pop culture filtered through a brain that contains all the information that entails.
And I'm Miles Gray, Jack's co-host, a former political operative and pop culture addict, like something I actually take medication for.
He does. And sometimes he's a bunch of different people, like Michael McDonald.
Tell him he's a stranger.
Japanese radio DJ.
Minasan ohayou gozaimasu, Miles desu.
And Making a Murderer's Brendan Dassey.
Yeah. No.
Just a fair warning, guys, you're going to learn a lot, but some of the content can get a little edgy, so not for young ears, but trust us, it's all in good fun. So go to Apple Podcasts and listen and subscribe to The Daily Zeitgeist. It's really good, is our catchphrase. We're still working on it.
Welcome to The Right Time Podcast. The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. You can send us a tweet at the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. That is at Bomani_Jones. All right, so we had a feeling this would happen. There is no terrible surprise to the fact that Jimbo Fisher has taken the job at Texas A&M. I do think there's a little bit of surprise for some people that Jimbo Fisher took the job at Texas A&M, although I have to say that Jimbo going to Texas A&M allowed us to really get cracking on things that are very entertaining about coaching searches that I felt like we really hadn't indulged in thus far about these coaching searches. And what would those things be? One, the flight tracker. I hadn't looked at the flight tracker in quite a while. Somebody had the flight tracker going from College Station to Tallahassee in order to pick Jimbo up. And the people who know planes apparently were saying that they could have sent him a nicer plane. That apparently the booster with the nice plane wasn't there. But anyway, they sent the plane to go get Jimbo. And then the other thing is just kind of stalking out somebody's house to see what kind of stuff they're doing. And we all knew that Jimbo was out of there when people saw his Christmas tree on the curb. Did you see that? Yeah, his Christmas tree was on the curb. They threw the Christmas tree out, presumably because they were leaving. And my question about that is, damn, why'd y'all even buy the Christmas tree? Now, come on, homie, you knew you was about to be up out of there. Why'd y'all even waste time buying the Christmas tree if all you was going to do was throw that bad boy out? Anyway, Jimbo Fisher, 10-year contract, 10-year contract. Say that one more time for the people in the cheap seats. 10-year contract, average salary, $7.5 million for Jimbo at Texas A&M. So, we now have 2 jobs in America that require you to win a national championship as the head coach. One of them is Alabama. You realize this about Alabama, right? That there are basically 2 kinds of coaches at Alabama. Head coaches who won national championships there and head coaches who were fired very quickly. Or you have Dennis Franchione who looked around and was like, man, bump this, and then he went, ironically, to Texas A&M. Not really ironically, but that's how you be using the word ironically. Anyway, the other person that has to win a national championship now, like at some point fast, is Jimbo Fisher. Like, it's on you. You got to do this. Ain't nobody paying you no $7.5 million to try hard. Ain't nobody paying you no $7.5 million to get the GPA up. Ain't nobody paying you no $7.5 million just to see what you can pull off down there. Somebody talked to the president of Texas A&M yesterday, and they asked him what his expectations were, what he wanted from a head coach, and he said, deadpan, just win a national championship. Guys, do you know the last time Texas A&M won a national championship? 1939. That would be the last time they won a national championship. 1939. And now the expectation is that you're going to win one. Look, $7.5 million. That's the only way anybody's giving you that kind of bread is if you are expected to come in here and win a national championship at a place where, one, they haven't won the conference since 1998. They have not won a division since 2010. And to be honest with you, I completely forgot that they won that division. That's a byproduct of Texas being terrible that year, by the way. Which, by the way, gets us to one of the more interesting points about Texas A&M that's going to make this a little difficult for Jimbo. There appears to be one factor in the history of Texas A&M that is required for them to be really, really good, and that is for Texas to be bad. If Texas is not good, then Texas A&M can kind of pick this thing up. Now, over the course of these last few years, Texas has not been good, and Texas A&M still, outside of that magical 2012 season, hasn't really been able to pull anything off. But that's what this is at this job. You have a job that is basically an 8-win job. Right? Up and down, look at it historically. A&M is an 8-win job. I think there are a lot of places that wishes they could be 8-win jobs, but if you're going to be real about it, during the Sumlin era, they were basically no different than Mississippi State. Like, go look at that year in, year out. You get mixed up which Maroon team was the best one in the conference during that stretch of time. Anyway, this is by and large an 8-win job that now suddenly has put out the bread that is going to allow everyone around that program to demand a national championship of Jimbo Fisher. Now, you're probably saying out there, well, every school wants to win a national championship. Yeah, every school wants to win a national championship, but most of them understand you ain't going to win one every year, right? You're going to get to the playoff here and there. Maybe you win a division championship, whatever it is, right? Like, those are the kinds of things that you got to hoping for out of a job in such a place. No, $7.5 million for the head coach. A head coach, by the way, who has already won a national championship. They are going to want a national championship, and they are not going to be shy about it. And since they got to the SEC, it should be noted, A&M has yet to beat LSU. A&M has that one win over Alabama. Now, there's a long way to go to catch up on this. Now, let me ask you this question. Regardless of how good a coach you think Jimbo Fisher is just in absolute terms, how much better of a coach do you think Jimbo Fisher is than Kevin Sumlin? Now, I don't love Kevin Sumlin. I also don't love Jimbo Fisher in that way. But I don't love Sumlin as a coach, but Sumlin's a good one. He's not a great coach necessarily, but he's a good one. And they went from the Big 12 and consistently won 8 games in the SEC, which I have to tell you, I wasn't absolutely sure they could do. Sumlin managed to recruit well, but you got to be creative recruiting at A&M, because I know a lot of you guys, when you think about how great the A&M job is, you'll point to the fact that it has facilities, you'll point to the fact that they have money, and you'll point to the fact that it is in Texas. I feel like the people who point to the fact that Texas A&M are in Texas are lazy. Why do I say they're lazy? Let's think of some other schools that are in Texas. Texas El Paso. It's in Texas. You think they can recruit there? No, they can't really recruit in Texas El Paso. In that case, it's because it's in El Paso. Now, El Paso is a different animal than the rest of Texas, far, far, far west. No lie, I'll never forget this as long as I live, man. When we moved to Houston, we drove in from Atlanta. We come across the state line at I-10. You come across, and there's a sign that says Orange, which is one of the towns right by the line. I forget how many miles you have to go before you get to Orange. And then under it says El Paso, 857 miles. Right? It's a big state. It's a lot of different things going on in Texas. And I'm just telling you right now, of those lots of things going on, ain't a lot of them going on in College Station. It's not. And I don't mean to make the College Station people defensive about this. I really, really don't, because I'm not trying to rag on your town. I'm just telling you, if you are from College Station and you like College Station, that is great for you. But whose sensibilities do you think are more in line with the average college recruit, shall we say? Do you think they are yours, or do you think they are mine? Do you think it is more important that College Station is a place that you would want to go, or do you think it's more important that College Station is a place that I would want to go? Oh, yeah, there we go. We together. We on the same page. We there. That's the holdup. That Jimbo Fisher can't really do anything about that. Now, what I want to see from this, number one, we know the contract's 10 years, $75 million. I haven't seen anything about what the buyout is. I'm fascinated to see what the buyout is. The other thing that I want to see in this is how much of that want to Texas A&M is about to put on the road for this. Because if you put $7.5 million on a coach, I feel like want to has to be applied at that point. I do. I feel like want to has really got to be applied. But let me ask this question of you, Texas A&M fans. Serious question about Jimbo. If you look at what Jimbo Fisher did at Florida State, outside of the stretch of time between 2012 and 2014. I think it's too easy for people to say what Jimbo's record was with Jameis and then put everything else together. They won the ACC and they won the Orange Bowl the year before Jameis started, and that was with E.J. Manuel at quarterback. And I don't know if you've ever seen E.J. Manuel at quarterback, but he wasn't no Jameis Winston. They won a lot at that point, but they still found a way to lose that game to NC State and to a Florida team that had no offense. But that's neither here nor there. Jimbo's stretch at Florida State has been that run in the middle. Now, if he manages to put one of those runs together at Texas A&M, he can quit after that. Like, they'll be happy to have that run. You don't believe me? You know the reason why they love Johnny Manziel so much at Texas A&M? Because they've been waiting their whole lives for something like that. In between John David Crow and Johnny Manziel, they were just sitting around waiting their whole lives for that sort of thing to happen. They were. So if Jimbo could get one of those runs, they'll be thrilled with it. But the demand here is a national championship, and I can't blame anybody around that program if they demand a national championship out of Jimbo Fisher after all the money they're paying him. The only problem is they haven't won a national championship since 1939, and nothing really has changed. This isn't like Florida, which had never won the SEC before Steve Spurrier. A lot of things happened in the state of Florida. It's not even like Florida State, where a lot of things happened at Florida State, like they were at all-women's college until the 40s, and then they hired Bobby Bowden. But like Miami, all those Florida schools, there was a population boom that took place at that time in Florida. And on top of that, there's a little thing called integration. It's a really big deal. Kind of changed the landscape of a whole lot of things. The only thing that's really changed for Texas A&M is that they went to the SEC. I don't think that's really the structural change that people are talking about that's really going to make things happen. So they can pump all that money into the program that they want to. They still going to be in College Station. And that is not a plus in your recruiting. It's just not. I don't make the rules, man, but that's not a plus in your recruiting. And the question is going to be, how many players are you able to get in there? And then once those players are there, the tie-breaking factor is, can you get the most out of them? Jimbo Fisher built a machine for 2013 that was as talented as any college football team has ever been. It's legitimately up there with that 2001 Miami team in terms of raw talent that he had on the team in 2013. He had that. I don't think you can put that kind of machine together at Texas A&M. It is that kind of machine that was required for Florida State to win a national championship with Jimbo, keeping in mind that they almost found a way to lose that game. Can you put that? Just because you can get it done at Florida State doesn't tell me anything about what it is that you can do at Texas A&M. And now with this salary and everything else, you ratcheted up the expectations, honestly and truly, to Alabama levels. Because Alabama's the only place that demands national championships at the rate that I think that Texas A&M is going to demand them now that they pay $7.5 million. They've been waiting their whole lives for something like this, Jimbo. You damn well better be what they dreamed of. All right, 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. Coming up next, oh, man, Tennessee is getting even funnier there. And I'll tell you how Phil Fulmer reminds you of one of your dad's friends. Which one? I'll tell you, ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. Mark Schlabach of ESPN will join us next segment. Mark Schlabach will join us at 4:30 Eastern. You know, now that Texas A&M has Jimbo, I guess Florida State needs a coach. Find out about that and more from him. 888-729-3776. That's our telephone number at 8. It's time for Straight Talk. Brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. We talk about that thing with Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M and him going and everything else. And somebody just made a point here. I want to make sure I read it properly. I don't know if he even posted this like with one of the Twitter names that I can. Oh, yeah, this guy William. He says, regarding recruiting. Yes, College Station is tough to recruit to, but how delightful is Tuscaloosa as a vacation destination? It's who's doing the recruiting that matters. Actually, something very interesting about that statement, and this is something that gets lost in the discussion about the SEC. The SEC is southern, but the SEC doesn't have a lot of poor destinations. Like, there aren't a lot of places in the SEC where people mention what they are, and people are like, I don't know about that one. The only ones that I can really think of that make people scrunch their faces up in the SEC are Starkville and College Station. That's it. You go through the rest of the conference, there really aren't that many destinations. And it's kind of one of the underrated things about the conference. Like, not even Auburn's and Opelika, not even that one, right? I mean, as far as, like, places people ultimately want to wind up in that conference, College Station isn't very high. Sorry, man. I don't make the rules. All right, 888-729-3776. That's our telephone number. So the Tennessee thing, it can't. every time you think it stops, right? I'm getting ready to leave the house to come in there to work today, and I see that Big Phil Fulmer, is being named the athletic director. This is after yesterday our old friend Brett McMurphy was reporting that the belief was that they were trying to get Mike Leach through. John Curry thought he had worked out a deal with Mike Leach to be the head coach, and that behind the scenes, Phil Fulmer was trying to slow up that hire so that he ultimately could become the athletic director. What do you know? Today, Phil Fulmer signs a 2-year contract to be the athletic director, and oh, by the way, if you are signing your athletic director to a 2-year contract, you're not making it any easier to find a coach. Because if you then get another athletic director at the end of the 2 years, guess what he's going to want to do? He's going to want to hire his own coach. Now, the only way that this argument makes any sense for them to put Fulmer in this position is Jimmy has him out here playing Geppetto, puppet strings, right? That's the only way that it makes some sense, is that Jimmy has him saying, look, Phil Fulmer is my hire, and the next guy that's the athletic director will then ultimately be my hire. What I think did John Curry, the former athletic director, in this case was he went out here and independently found himself a coach to hire. That means that booster class doesn't have power over what it is. And that booster class apparently got together and was like, yo, we got to get this clown up out of here. What took you so long? I talked to somebody who made a very, very, very good point about this. In everything that has happened with Tennessee, you could make the argument that hiring Mike Leach was the one good idea that they had. And that's the one that got the dude fired. And that's how ridiculous this search has gotten. Would you like some more information on how ridiculous that search has gotten? This is from SBNation.com. Shannon, here's the headline. Tennessee's coaching search has already cost more than $13 million, plus a potential Greg Schiano lawsuit, and the Vols don't even have a head coach yet.
Wait, what?
Okay.
Wait, how much was that again?
$13 million. We got $5.5 million to buy out the athletic director. That's wow. Who knew being an athletic director paid like that, right? $5.5 million left to pay out as an athletic director. Shannon, athletic director made 100 G's a month.
And didn't last a year.
100 G's a month, getting the buyout. Didn't last a year. Didn't last 9 months. 100 G's a month. Then the buyout for Butch Davis was $8.3 million. So that's $13 million right there. We're not even talking about all these private planes and all the embarrassment and everything else. They spent $13 million so far to not have a coach. To not have a coach. That's where they are. And Phil Fulmer, now some of you may remember this, some of you may not. For you younger folks, Phil Fulmer was a longtime assistant at Tennessee. During the 1992 season, I believe it was. Yeah, I think it was the 1993. Either way it goes. Johnny Majors was the head coach, and Johnny Majors had a heart attack. He had to miss a few games. After those few games were done, Johnny Majors got fired, and Phil Fulmer, who had been the interim coach, wound up with the job. Johnny Majors has told anybody who would listen over that time that Phil Fulmer muscled him out of his job. It's also noted, by the way, that in the time that Johnny Majors coached that year, they were 5-3 and 3-3 in the SEC. Like, there's a lot that goes on with that. But Johnny Majors has been adamant that Phil Fulmer muscled him off that job. And anytime somebody asked Johnny Majors any questions about what was going on at Tennessee, he was giving credit to anybody other than Phil Fulmer. This was the Johnny Majors lie, Shannon. You know, John Chavis is the reason why he still has a job, right? John Chavis is the defensive coordinator.
I can only imagine.
Right? Like, that's what it was with Johnny Majors. So Phil, the word was that Phil strong-armed him. But then after that, Phil did a bunch of winning, so I don't feel like anybody actually cared about that one. But now we got the word that Phil Fulmer appeared to have muscled this athletic director out of place, which isn't going to cause him any problems with, like, the Tennessee faithful, because they wanted the athletic director out of there anyway. That being said, Shannon, the more I look at this, I'm looking at Phil Fulmer like that friend of your daddy's. Well, I've never experienced this personally, but I hear people tell that story where you hear ding-dong on the door, and then you go to the front door, and you're like, hi, Mr. Fulmer, my dad's not home. That's not who I'm coming to see. I mean, he stayed muscling people out of gigs. Wasn't he the one that they thought snitched to the NCAA, and he didn't show up to the SEC meetings that year because they were trying to hit him with the subpoena when he walked in the door? Also, Phil Fulmer reminds me a lot of, what's your man's name? Law and Order. The Senator, Fred Thompson. You remember? You see it, don't you?
I'll look this up, but wasn't Thompson from Tennessee as well?
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. In fact, is Fred Thompson still alive, living as Phil Fulmer, and we just have no idea? I mean, I watch Law and Order. This seems like the sort of thing that man would have done. It's not him. Yeah, you know why it's not him? Because Fred Thompson's a little taller, a little more of the lanky type. Phil Fulmer is an old offensive lineman. He straight muscled that dude out of there. And, by the way, got himself back in there because people wanted Fulmer to be the athletic director when Curry got this job in 2017. And then Curry wound up giving Fulmer like a $100,000 a year job, some ceremonial thing to try to appease those fans who wanted Fulmer there. And little did John Curry know, Fulmer was like, cool. Fulmer's like, I'm back in the house, back in the game. Just sitting there plotting. That's all this was plotting. He's like, look, we're going to get this coaching search going. I'm going to make it as hard as possible. Then I'm going to get that. Just you watch. I'm going to get that.
As bad as we heard this go for Curry, though, having this information with Fulmer trying to muscle him out, isn't that actually a good thing for Curry if he's trying to get another AD job?
So you got an excuse?
It's a built-in excuse, is it not?
He does have a built-in excuse. You are right. That is the story that he can tell. He has got his built-in excuse. Meanwhile, Phil Fulmer somewhere looking like Mr. Burns with his fingers coming together, right? Like hitting his fingers together at the top of the point. Excellent. Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. Hey, all you guys on hold from College Station who are upset with me, you're going to have to call back a little bit later. We don't have time for it, and honestly, everything you're going to tell me is going to be wrong. Coming up next, where does Florida State go now that they need a head coach? We'll talk to Mark Schlabach of ESPN on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. I'll join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. On the line with us now, he covers college sports for us here at ESPN. His name is Mark Schlabach. Now, Mark, we have found the Florida State job is now open with Jimbo Fisher going to Texas A&M. What do we know about where they want to go next?
I think Florida State, from what I've been told, Stan Wilcox, their athletics director, would like to target a minority candidate, but not if possible. I think Oregon's Willie Taggart, Virginia Tech's Justin Fuente, South Florida's Charlie Strong would be potential candidates. I think Kevin Sumlin would be a good candidate. I just don't know if Florida State's ready to do a coach swap with the school that just stole their coach.
Now, do we have any idea what the motivation would be behind the desire to specifically have a minority candidate?
No, I think Taggart makes sense because he's a native of Bradenton, Florida. He coached at South Florida. He had a lot of success recruiting Florida. I don't know the motivation for it. It's just something I've been told that, Florida State's never had an African-American head coach in football. I think it's something they would potentially like to do.
All right, we are talking to Mark Schlabach of ESPN here on The Right Time. Now, with Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M, what do you think is realistic to expect of him? Because I think at $7.5 million, the expectation of a national championship would be understandable.
Yeah, the chancellor there, John Sharp, said, that they expect nothing short of national championships. He got a 10-year, $75 million contract, which is the richest in college football history in terms of total value. Talking with Darren Ravel, our colleague, there's only been a couple of coaches in college football history who had 10-year contracts. Newt Rockne and Bear Bryant were two of them. I just think with that kind of contract, they're all in. He said, Sharp, the chancellor, said yesterday, we've got the best stadium in the SEC. We've got the best facilities in the SEC. And by the end of the search, they had planned to have the best coach. Eric Sony's telling them Nick Saban is still in Tuscaloosa. But, Jimbo, Texas A&M has everything. They just haven't had great success. And I think it's a program to start for that.
Well, what do you think about Jimbo as a coach? Because there's that 3-year run from 2012 to 2014 where they were great under him. Outside of that, it's been fairly mediocre.
No, he was great when he had Jameis Winston. Won a national championship in 2013, won a couple of ACC titles. He slipped last year. I thought, giving the benefit of the doubt, he lost DeAndre Francois as quarterback in week 1 against Alabama. I still say the first 3 quarters of that Florida State game, for the most part of 3 quarters, that looked like a top 5 team to me with Francois under center. I think he and the staff did a terrible job of keeping that team together once Francois went down. But, one of the problems at Florida State was he was too loyal to his assistant coaches. It was one of the criticisms of Bobby Bowden when he was there. He was too loyal to his buddies, and I think that's one of the motivations for Jimbo Fisher to leave is, he didn't want to have to fire guys like Rick Trickett as offensive line coach and Charles Kelly as defensive coordinator. Maybe it's easier to part ways with those guys when you change jobs. So I think putting together a new coaching staff, getting some fresh ideas, I think is going to be one of the keys at Texas A&M.
All right, we're talking to Mark Schlabach of ESPN here on The Right Time. Now, for whoever inherits this Florida State job, how good do you think it is now?
I think it's still one of the top 15 jobs in the country. I mean, one of Jimbo's biggest complaints the last couple of years is that they've fallen behind Clemson and Alabama and Georgia and some other places in terms of facilities. But the Florida State people argue we still have the best facilities of any FBS program in the state. They've done a lot of things in terms of an indoor practice facility, renovating the strength and conditioning room. Jimbo wanted a standalone football facility like Clemson and some other places have. And they have plans to do that. But, look, Florida State, they got great tradition under Bobby Bowden. Jimbo did some great things there. They've only had 2 coaches in the last 40 years, so they've had great stability. It's located in Florida. It's a great place to recruit. I think talent-wise, Jimbo's recruiting didn't slip. I think if Francois comes back healthy, I think it's a team that can contend with Clemson in the ACC Atlantic Division for the years to come.
All right, we're talking to Mark Schlabach of ESPN here on The Right Time. What did you think when you heard that Philip Fulmer had been named the athletic director at Tennessee?
I thought the only thing that would have been cooler is if he'd gotten up there and said, I'm interim AD and I'm naming myself coach. I mean, that would have been a fitting end to this Tennessee search. But, it wasn't working with John Currie, and I don't, we just got to get to the bottom of it. I don't know that it was all Curry's fault. I think there were some things going on behind the scenes that maybe made his job more difficult. I mean, I've been told everything from that he got rogue and went out to California on his own and met with Mike Leach in L.A. without anybody else's knowledge. That's stuff we still got to figure out what exactly transpired. But, I mean, I think there have been 8. I kind of lose count. I think there have been at least 8 guys they've talked to, and that doesn't include John Gruden and Chip Kelly, who I'm not sure that they ever really made contact with other than, are you interested? No. But it's been an embarrassment. I think Fulmer is a guy who can at least unite the fan base, bring the alumni back together, get everybody back on the same page, and try to go find a football coach. I find it interesting. Chris Lowe's reporting they gave him a 2-year contract. I do think that will make it easier for him to go out and find a coach because at least the new coach is going to know who his boss is going to be for the next 24 months.
Well, the 24 months, but then after that, I guess I would be concerned if I were somebody taking that job about who then gets hired. Like, who can they get to take this job now?
In terms of a coach or an AD?
In terms of a coach. I'll start with coach.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe they can go back to a couple of guys they talked to before, and they think maybe if it's Philip Fulmer instead of John Currie I'm dealing with, there's more stability, so maybe it's a better situation than what I perceived. I think they're going to go after a guy with maybe Tennessee ties, whether it's Kevin Steele, the defensive coordinator at Auburn, who did not have a great run as a head coach at Baylor, albeit 17 years ago. He's a guy who's got some support among Tennessee people. T. Martin has a lot of support from former Tennessee players, but he just doesn't seem to have any support from the people who are in charge of making the decision. I don't know if T's ready or not, but he's a big name. He's a guy who won a national championship. He's Tennessee's quarterback. He's done a good job as USC's offensive coordinator. I'm surprised he hadn't at least gotten a phone call.
Well, how much of this at Tennessee is a booster problem? Because I generally find the crazier a college football job is when you got one booster you can name by name, and in this case it's Jimmy Haslam, the chaos seems to come behind it.
I think they got a booster problem. I think they've got a problem of who's actually in charge and who needs to be calling the shots. And, there are other people who have their fingers on this thing too, and one of them played in the NFL is going to end up in the Hall of Fame. There are a lot of people involved in this search.
All right, that is Mark Schlabach. Check him out covering college sports for us here at ESPN. Thanks so much, sir. I appreciate it.
A great weekend, Bomani. Enjoy the games.
All right, man, you too. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. More independent agents sell Progressive than any other brand. Find an agent at Progressive.com today. Now, that's Progressive. Coming up next, Cam Stewart with his NFL picks on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Our guest joined us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Thanks to Mark Schleybaugh of ESPN for joining us last segment. On the line with us now, check him out at AM 640 in Toronto and the Fantasy Sports Network. Joins us every week with his NFL picks. His name is Cam Stewart. All right, Cam, you had 500 for the season, 22-22. Let's get into your picks. You got your bronze medal game, the Patriots and the Bills. Patriots 9-point favorites on the road. Which way are you going?
There's a fire in Lackawanna, Cheektowaga, and nobody circles the wagons like the Bills, Bomani. I'm going with Buffalo. Give me the 9 points. I'll tell you something. It's going to be awesome. They got to get to Brady early. Lots of pressure, lots of sacks, maybe force a turnover and keep that crowd in the game. But Buffalo, I love the performance against Kansas City. New England, they just keep on rolling. But this is a big, big spot for the Bills with easy games down the stretch. I think they can keep it close. I think if Patriots win, it's going to be on like a last-second magical Tom Brady drive. But I'm going to take Buffalo Bill +9 in a tight game.
Cam, you're right down the road, man. You got to go make that trip to sit outside in the cold in Buffalo.
I have, Bomani. I made that trip. I usually go to a couple games every year. This year I haven't been able to make it. I was actually at the CFL semifinal, and the Argos won the Grey Cup, bringing them some good luck. But I will be making the trip. Hopefully, if the Bills can squeak into a playoff game, we might go down to QEW for that one.
All right, it's Cam Stewart with his NFL picks. All right, your silver game, Rams and Cardinals. Cardinals 7-point underdogs at home. You found a home dog again?
Yeah, I'm going with the home dog, and I love what the Rams are doing. I got to give them a lot of credit. McVay and that team has been fantastic. Goff has really grown. Todd Gurley, he's doing what he did in Georgia. But this is a big revenge spot for the Cards, and I got to admit, Blaine Gabbert's been playing pretty good. These guys were embarrassed by London by the Rams, and Gabbert, he's actually been playing a lot better. These guys, the Arizona Cardinals, held the Jags to a season-low 219 of offense. Their defense is playing a little bit better. The offense is actually starting to click. 7 points seems like a few too many points. I could see a real tight one. Cheap. Give me the Cardinals, Bomani, plus a touchdown.
All right, on to Cam Stewart, AM 640 here. All right, your goal pick. We got the Eagles and the Seahawks. The Eagles are 5.5-point favorites on the road. I'm sensing a trend here.
Yeah, I am sensing a trend, too. I'll tell you something. This was really tough for me because Carson Wentz right now in MVP talks, and if he goes into the land of the 12th man and gets it done, I got to give him a lot of credit. Philadelphia's been covering all year long, but now you're giving me the Seattle Seahawks as +5.5 at home. Pete Carroll, a monster in December, 21-9 straight up, 21-8-1 ATS in this month. They love playing the NFC East, too, 3-0 against the spread there. Philadelphia has been awesome, Bomani, but they beat up on some lesser lights. If Seattle brings that Russell Wilson magic and the 12th man, I could see a real tight game, even Seattle winning outright. I got to take the 5.5, but let's give credit to the Eagles. But I'm going with the Seahawks over the Eagles in the Battle of the Birds.
All right, we are talking to Cam Stewart, AM 640 in Toronto and the Fantasy Sports Network. All right, we got a couple other games for you, though. Vikings and Falcons. Which way are you going there?
Yeah, you know what? I'm actually going to go with the Falcons in this game, Bomani. I'm hoping to get 2.5. Right now, the line's staying at 3. If I bet, I'm probably taking the money line, but I really like what Atlanta's doing. Hey, let's give Minnesota a lot of credit. These guys have been making people money all season long, but I like Atlanta in this spot. They're playing good football. They are at home. They're going to get it done, Bomani. I got to take the Falcons to beat the Vikes.
You're not trusting Case Keenum. You're rolling the dice on that one a few too many times.
He's rolling. I'll tell you, the Vikings have been good to me. I got some futures on these guys just this week. I like what Atlanta's doing. They smell a big divisional battle in the NFC South. They know they got to keep on winning. Give me the Falcons.
All right, now we got Broncos and Dolphins. This was an even money game coming off the to start the week. Which way you going there?
Yeah, I'm going with Denver. Actually, I kind of like the situation because Denver's backed into a better quarterback. Paxton Lynch is not ready to play, Bomani, but I will tell you this. Trevor Siemian in that game against the Raiders when they were down 21-0, he came in. They only lost 21-14. I still see some fight in Denver. I have no faith in Gase, Cutler, and the Dolphins. This game's basically a pick 'em. Give me the Denver Broncos to get it done in Miami.
All right, talk to Cam Stewart, AM 640 in Toronto with his NFL picks. You got anything going for the college football weekend?
I sure do, Bomani. It's going to be a great game tonight between Stanford and USC. I think it could be really close, but the games I like, Auburn and Georgia rematch. I'm telling you something. I could see defense at a premium here. 48.5 is very low for a college total, but the Tigers and Bulldogs, this is going to be a classic game. I could see like a 19-17 type of game, scratching, clawing. I'm going to take the under, keep digging, Auburn and Georgia, 48.5. And I got to go with the Badgers. The Badgers getting 6.5 against Ohio State. Wisconsin disrespected all season long. A very, very tight defense. They can do enough on offense, and I'll tell you one thing they'll do, Bomani. They will pound the rock against Ohio State. I see a tight game, maybe Wisconsin winning outright. The Dogs in the Big Ten championship game have always done well. Sign me up with the Wisconsin Badgers plus 6.5.
Hey, man, I got to ask you this, man. Since you said you went to those Grey Cup semis, like, what's the environment at a Grey Cup playoff game?
It's absolutely insane, Bomani. You know what it is, though? There's a lot of people there and a lot of drinking, but you know what it is? Compared to an NFL game, it's kind of stupid to say this, Canadian, it's friendlier. Like, Saskatchewan fan was hanging with Argo fan, and they're taking pictures and stuff. Like, I've been to a Bills game wearing a Joey Galloway Seahawks jacket, and they're throwing old beers at me, mustard packets. Like, I walked out of there, and my jersey was absolutely ruined, and they're like, hey, Bonnie, man, Seahawks suck. Like, you get a lot of that in Buffalo, even though the Seahawks aren't even a rival of the Bills. So I'm just going to say, Bomani, less people, more friendly, but great football action. The Grey Cup was a classic this year. Fantastic stuff. Argos over Stampeders.
All right, that is my man, Cam Stewart. Check him out here every Friday with his NFL picks. That 500, man, I think you can get off that. You think we got to get you off the basic, man. Make the people winners.
You said it, buddy. Ups and downs this year, but hope everyone hits some winners this week. Good luck with the picks, Bomani, and I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
All right, man, you take it easy. All right, 888-729-3776. That's our telephone number. Subscribe right now to 30 for 30 Podcast in the Listen tab of the ESPN app or Apple Podcast, brought to you by Blue Apron. Get $30 off your first meal with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/30 for 30. Also, shout out to Cam. He was at the grocery store when he was doing that hit. We appreciate that. We greatly appreciate that.
Could you imagine walking in the grocery store and hearing that Cam Stewart conversation while in the grocery store?
Well, once he does the horse noise, I think that's the part where if you're just a grocery store consumer and you hear this, you've got to be wondering what exactly is going on, right? Like at that moment, you're like, who in the world is he talking to?
I can also imagine that Cam's probably a couponer, too. Just imagine how excited he gets when he finds a great deal.
I tell you this, I do radio interviews like in cabs and in stores and stuff like that. And one time somebody was like, wow, I heard the way you were talking. You ought to be on the radio. And I'm like, yeah, let me keep this moving before you mess around recognize me. All right, 888-729-3776. That's our telephone number. Coming up next, we were so close to Mike Leach in the SEC. What went wrong? ESPN Radio.
Thanks for listening to the Right Time Podcast. Please come back Monday for more. And don't forget to listen to The Right Time with Bomani Jones from 4 p.m. to 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Buying tickets to sports and concerts can be complicated, but there is a better, simpler way to buy with SeatGeek. SeatGeek is the smartest, easiest way to get tickets to live events. With SeatGeek's seamless mobile experience, you can buy and sell tickets in just 2 taps. SeatGeek helps you find the best seats at the best prices, fully guaranteed. There's nothing quite like seeing your favorite team or musician in person, and SeatGeek will get you closer to the action for a great value. I have the SeatGeek app on my phone, and it's by far the easiest way I found to shop for tickets. I could be anywhere, and with just a few taps, I can instantly find seats. I actually used SeatGeek to buy tickets to go see the Marlins and experience the whole thing. It was fantastic. SeatGeek is designed to make your ticket buying experience easier than ever. SeatGeek saves you time and money by searching multiple ticket sites to compare prices and find amazing deals. Plus, every purchase is fully guaranteed, so you can shop for tickets on SeatGeek with confidence. Best of all, my listeners get $20 off their first SeatGeek purchase. Just download the SeatGeek app and enter promo code BOMANI today. That's promo code BOMANI for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase.
Hello, the Internet. It's Jack O'Brien, the founder and former editor-in-chief of Crack.com and the host of the new comedic news podcast, The Daily Zeitgeist, which, as the name suggests, is daily and sporadically in German. If you like Cracked, How Stuff Works podcasts and want to get your news from some of the smartest and funniest comedic and journalistic minds around, well then, this show is going to make you all over the place.
Yeah, I don't think we can use that.
Sure we can. Go to Apple Podcasts to listen and subscribe.
Welcome to the Right Time Podcast. The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. You can send us a tweet at the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. That is at Bomani_Jones. All right, so Tennessee made Phil Fulmer the athletic director today because they don't know what in the hell they are doing. They did finally get wise to the fact that they were probably going to have to fire their athletic director, and they had to fire the athletic director because pretty much everybody knew the athletic director was ultimately going to get fired, and it becomes very difficult for you to hire a head coach if your athletic director is going to be fired. Then there is Phil Fulmer, as I described him before. Phil Fulmer's the dude that comes over, your dad's friend that comes to the house. You're like, hi, Mr. Fulmer, my dad's not home. And he's like, It's not who I came to see, little fella. Go tell your mom I'm here. Look, man, he muscles his way into whatever it is that needs to be muscled into. He got himself this athletic director job. He parlayed some little ceremonial position, kept himself at the right place, talked to the right folks, created enough hassles. Now John Curry is out of there. And this is Beverly Davenport, a.k.a. White Beverly, explaining what's going on here.
This morning, I decided to make a change in leadership in our athletics department. It's a decision I feel that was in the best interest of our university. John Curry has been suspended, and Philip Fulmer has agreed to step in as our athletic director. I want you to know John Curry has worked tirelessly in his position, and I greatly respect him for his commitment and his contributions to the University of Tennessee. Several weeks ago, I asked him to lead a search for our next football coach. He was given full authority to find the best coach for Tennessee. But we are here today to begin a new era and a new opportunity to move the University of Tennessee forward. I asked Philip if he would lead our athletic department for the foreseeable future, and I asked him to take the reins of our search for the next head football coach.
Look here. If it's a new era, you don't get a man a 2-year contract. A new era comes with more than a 2-year contract. They're like, look, we had to get this dude up out of here. We got somebody here to be in place, but, you know, things are getting bad. We had to get this dude up out of here. Now, what it sounds like was the last straw for John Curry, though. He flew out to interview Mike Leach for the head coaching position, and we had gotten the word, like, not just yesterday, but I was hearing it this morning. It looked like Mike Leach was going to be the guy to get the job. And Leach keeps winding up coaching these teams in these far-off locales, but he wants to coach in the light. You know, he wants to coach somewhere where he can get some shine. I don't know how it works for him in a place where he can get some shine, but Mike Leach has won 10 games at Texas Tech and had a 9-win season this year that could end in 10 at Washington State. Those are not easy places for you to win. You kind of got to figure this out one way or another, and he managed to. And look, it's one thing to pull this off while you're at Texas Tech because Texas at least has so many players that you can get, you know, you can figure it out at Texas Tech. Wazoo, no. They're not producing players anywhere near there to figure out how to win there. Look, they beat USC this year. They beat Oregon this year. I mean, they figured this out and how to get it done. He wants to go to the light. Now he got to go right back there. But this is what it sounds like to me. You let me know if I'm tripping. But it sounds like Curry went and decided, okay, if I'm going to have to get this done, I got to do this myself. So he went out and got a guy that he thought would work as the head coach. And then he came and he brought that back to the money. And the money was like, what in the hell are you talking about? And then once that happens, you have to go. Like this is the second time they tried to hire somebody. Look, and it did not work. It could not even get it through. There's no way for them to get that bad boy through. So we lost the fun, Shannon, to Mike Leach SEC press conferences. And do you know how that was going to play with an SEC school? Because I feel like we media guys enjoy it a great deal, but I don't know how that was going to play with the fans.
That would have been a win every week with his weekly presser. Come on now. I would have loved that. I'm not even talking about the on-the-field stuff with Leach and his offense going against these SEC defenses. I want the weekly Mike Leach SEC press conference. Come on.
But here's the question. How many of those press conferences will we actually get? Because you can get away with having those press conferences when you're like 5-7 when you at Wazoo. I don't think you can get away with those kind of press conferences when you're 9-3 at Tennessee. Right? You could be 10-2. I don't know if you can get away with those press conferences. Like, I feel like that whole thing tires in a place where the stakes are much higher. Like Texas Tech, for example. Who was before Mike Leach got there? I think Mike Leach got the job. Spike Dykes was the guy who had the job before him. Spike Dykes had been there forever. Spike Dykes was a legendary sort of figure at Texas Tech. Spike Dykes had all of 2 seasons at Texas Tech where he won 9 games. They had 2 seasons at Texas Tech where they finished in the top 20 or top 25, whatever the poll happened to be then. That's all it was. They had 2. Mike Leach, he shows up there. He's like new damn Rodney for them when he gets there. I'm not sure how that would have played in a different place, but I'm right there with Shannon. I would have loved to have watched how it would have played in that different place. Problem is, man, I don't get the feeling that Mike Leach understands, like, there's some things you don't say out loud. Like, he get around there and tell the wrong joke in front of the wrong people, then all of a sudden we got some issues. But that's him. And now he's not going to be there. So who is ultimately going to be the one to take this job, and how much money is it going to take to get insert person here to take that job? Because as we talked about this before, SB Nation made a great point. As of now, in the name of trying to find a head coach, Tennessee has spent $13 million. They paid $8.3 million to get Bush Jones out of his contract. They paid a boatload of cash, over $5 million to get John Curry out of his contract. They still don't have a coach. Also, by the way, $8.3 million for Bush Jones to no longer coach them. $5-something million for John Curry to no longer be the athletic director. Shannon, I thought they said they couldn't find no money to pay the players. You remember that?
Funny how somehow, some way, they always find a way to come up. They got, you know what? It's in their sofas, Bo. It's between the cushions. That's exactly where it is.
That's what it is. Yeah, everybody says they don't have the money to find the players. They have had all the money for this farce that they have engaged in, and in order to get this done, they're probably going to have to back up the truck. Like, remember, they got caught in that situation when Lane Kiffin left in 2010. They got the low-budget hire. They went and got what's it, great value? Is that what they call it? They went and got the great value hire. They went and got Derek Dooley, and that's the mistake that is damn Tennessee. Lane Kiffin wasn't so much of a mistake, except I don't think they ever considered that Pete Carroll would leave so quickly and Lane Kiffin would be the guy that they ultimately brought on to take that job. That was the math I didn't think they accounted for. But if Lane Kiffin had stayed at Tennessee for a while, he could have gotten some things going. He recruited well while he was there, and he pulled off some things that he was there winning-wise that I think some games that they did not expect to win. Kept it close against Florida, although I think his whole plan, again, that game was just to cover the spread. But anyway, Dooley was the hire that messed everything up. As I said on this show before, Dooley once had one full recruiting class that did not have an offensive lineman. Dead up, a full recruiting class that didn't have an offensive lineman. They can't get to the point in this where whoever the hire is a settle hire. They can't get to a point where they do what they did with Dooley, where they hire somebody for that job that no one else would have hired for a job of a similar caliber. They're going to have to go hard to try to get whoever it is. So we had Mark Schlabach on a little earlier, and Mark said that it looks like it's coming down to it at Florida State with Willie Taggart and Justin Fuente. Justin Fuente is now the coach at Virginia Tech. If Justin Fuente is still available, Shannon, what's taking Tennessee so long to back up the truck and try to get him?
I'm surprised his name hasn't come up in the Tennessee job.
Like, I mean, how much does it cost now? Like, how much would it cost? If you wanted to get Fuente right now, how much does it cost? Like, I feel like it's going to cost them $6 million to get a coach, right?
And to your point you made earlier in the segment, any coach they get now, whatever that number was initially going to be, it's raised considerably now. Like, whatever the amount is going to be, you're going to have to pay. I'm not going to say double, but you're going to have to add a lot to it now.
Yes, and there's also the interesting bit of drama, which is there any set of circumstances where they wind up so far down their list that they then have to go call T. Martin? Now, I am very careful in what I say about T. Martin and his candidacy because there are macro-level issues in the game of college hiring, right? College coach hiring, there are macro-level issues where it's easy to draw some conclusions, to jump to some conclusions as it relates to T. Martin. I don't know enough about him and his readiness or what people in his business think of him to say that he should be the head coach at Tennessee. I cannot say that. However, how embarrassing would it be if they waited so long to offer T. Martin that he finally said, no, I ain't trying to be there? Because the farther down they go on the list, you're getting a guy that people are not necessarily going to be happy with. The other question, and I've heard people broach this, we had Bruce Feldman on yesterday, and Bruce Feldman mentioned this, which is, what is the role that Peyton Manning has in this search specifically as it relates to T. Martin? Right, because as much as everybody loves Peyton Manning, well, a lot of y'all love Peyton Manning that way. Anyway, as big a name as Peyton Manning happens to be, he is the man at Tennessee, right? He is a particular legend at Tennessee. Except he never won the championship. He did not. They finally never beat Florida. They finally got an SEC championship, but he never won a national championship. They wound up in the Fiesta Bowl, I believe that was in 1997, and they got their doors, the Orange Bowl. It was the Orange Bowl. Orange Bowl. They got the doors blown off when they finally got there. They got their doors absolutely blown off. Next year, Tennessee finally does beat Florida. They finally get that undefeated season. They finally do win a national championship. And so people have raised the question as to whether or not Peyton Manning might be uncomfortable with the idea that the guy who did the things that he was not able to do, and of course it was, don't know one person do anything. But the quarterback is typically the face of these things. And the guy that got done what Peyton Manning didn't get done, is Peyton Manning willing to have that guy also come in, be the head coach, and maybe get this thing right, which then might cut a little bit into Peyton Manning's shine? That is a question that people have asked. I would love to get to the bottom of that. All right, 888-729-3776. That's our telephone number. Coming up next, find out why some people think Malcolm Jenkins look like he the feds. You listen to ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. Corey Clark of the Tallahassee Democrat will join us next segment. Corey Clark will join us at 4:30 Eastern and talk about where Florida State goes from here. The Right Time is brought to you by the Home Depot, a proud sponsor of the College Game Day Tour, live this Saturday from Charlotte as Clemson takes on Miami in the ACC Championship game. The Home Depot, the next generation of home improvement with everything you need to do projects smarter. The Home Depot, more saving, more doing. All right, 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. So right after we got done with the show yesterday, we had talked about this thing with Malcolm Jenkins and the Players Coalition and everything else. And Malcolm Jenkins said that he's no longer going to protest. No. He said he is no longer going to protest. And then both he and Anquan Bolton made it clear that they said that any agreement that was struck with the Players Coalition and the NFL was not going to be a simple quid pro quo. It was not going to be we have an agreement, now you guys don't protest anymore. But Malcolm Jenkins sure said that he just magically at that time decided that he didn't want to do it anymore. And here's what he said. He said, I know a lot of people have made a big deal about the money that the league has proposed, but I'm more concerned and more interested in the platform they're proposing. The reason I started raising my fist in the first place is draw awareness to injustices in this country, disenfranchised people of color. I wanted to draw awareness. And so I think what the league is proposing is a platform and a campaign similar to what they've done with breast cancer awareness. My cause, my cleats, salute to service, but hopefully in an even bigger manner. And I understand the argument that he makes that if I get more out of this if these things do more than the actual raising of a fist or something like that, it's a fair trade. I'm not mad at that, and I don't have a problem with the notion of a trade in that circumstance. The bottom line is, if you decide to boycott a company, for example, they do what you want, you then go back and patronize that company again. Our morality is intertwined with our capitalism in this society. It becomes very, very difficult to separate the two. And so if people who only seem to care about money put the thing that they care about behind what you're talking about, I can understand why you would make the decision that you would change your approach. Now, after the show's done, though, we got this interview with Slate from Eric Reed, and Eric Reed was just like, yo, flex bombs. I have flex bombs all around. Long and the short, Eric Reed seems to be indicating that this Players Coalition has, is 40 guys, but Malcolm Jenkins and Anquan Bolton are at the top, and they're having calls with the dudes from the league that not everyone else is on. And what seems unclear is whether or not the other guys who are in the coalition really have any idea what's going on. I talked to a dude yesterday that's part of the Players Coalition on the group text and everything else, and his response was, someone is lying. But I found it very telling that he didn't know who the person was that was lying, that these guys in this group don't necessarily know who within it is telling the truth and how much they can trust the guys that are at the top of it, right? So Michael Thomas, who plays for the Dolphins, he says he's backing out of the coalition. Russell Okung says he's backing out of the coalition, along with Eric Reed. Now, this is something that Eric Reed said that I thought was interesting. Two things. One thing he said is that he thinks that Roger Goodell wants to have this whole thing wrapped up by, I believe the date was December 13th. And he said the reason that he believes that Goodell wants to have this wrapped up by then is because they're going to have a meeting about his contract extension, and he wants to get this thing out of the way, right? That's what he wants. He wants this thing to be out of the way under those, when it's time to talk about him getting his money. But the other thing that Reed talked about when he got into this, and he's looking at everything that's going on with the situation, what this thing's going to be with the protest, he said that someone from the league came to him and said, if we give you guys this money, will you stop protesting? Now, Eric, what's his name? Malcolm Jenkins is saying that there is no quid pro quo on this one. Anquan Bolton is saying that there is no quid pro quo on this one. But Jenkins and Bolton need to understand where they look bad in this situation. Bolton looked bad in this because as this is going on, Bolton is trying to get back in the league. Like, he retired at the beginning of this season, but Bolton is trying to get back in the league. So how would it look if this deal was struck and then suddenly somebody gave a job to Anquan Bolton? Right. That right there would not look very good, now would it? How does it look on Malcolm Jenkins' part? If Malcolm Jenkins is the guy that's at the front of this and it turns out that he's having meetings and saying things that the other guys in the coalition do not know, and then he decides in it all on his own, you know what, I'm not going to raise my fist anymore. it does then sound to people like he made a trade. And look, that's a trade that he can decide to make, except for the fact that he only has so much latitude to make decisions for the other guys. Now, the guys in his coalition, you can't expect them to all agree. It's 40 people. You can't expect them to all be friends. It's 40 people. You can't expect them to all get along. It's 40 people. They are going to have their internal issues with these things, just as the owners probably have their own internal issues about these things. But the dude at the front of the movement can't look like police. And the way that Malcolm Jenkins has comported himself, from what we can tell, if Eric Reed is to be trusted, is that he acting like he got a wire on. Basically, that he going back telling them what it is, and then everything goes around from there. That's where this whole thing is right now. The owners just want this to stop. I totally understand that. The owners just want this to stop. The owners don't care what the bottom line on the issue is. The owners just want this to stop. So I did First Take this morning, and Stephen A. Smith was saying, if you're Malcolm Jenkins, that you cannot be concerned with what other people think about you in this circumstance. If they disagree with you, then you just got to go ahead and keep on trucking with what you're doing. And my point for Stephen A. was, you're right. You can't be bogged down by the fact that some people are going to disagree with you. But if people question your intentions, then you got to fix that. Right? Because if in theory you are doing something that is ultimately selfless and supposed to be for other people, the second that you look like you are being co-opted by the owners, you become useless. Remember this. I've said that I don't think the owners care about these issues. I don't think that they're concerned with those. And people have said to me, why is it that how can I be so sure the owners don't care? I can tell you how you can be so sure the owners don't care. Because if the owners cared, this wouldn't be a negotiation between the players and the owners. This would be a collaboration. They would all be getting together and saying, hey, this is something we all care about. What's the best way that we can show how much we care? It's not what the owners are going for. The owners are going for, hey, man, what can we do to get y'all to start, get y'all's back straight during this national anthem? There is no need to negotiate with people with whom you agree. You negotiate with adversaries. You negotiate with people who are on the other side. And this is absolutely a negotiation, and the owners or players are absolutely on the other side, on oppositional sides. Now, the owners have tried to get a little mix of people who are on the, you got Shad Khan there. He's not so happy with Trump right now. Stephen Ross, I think, has been one of the guys that's been involved with this. He works with black kids. He's big. He got a charity. Whole thing. He seemed to be down. They also got Bidwill and like Bob McNair and these guys that have been showing up to these meetings also to give like a representative sample of what the ownership base is. If the owners as a unit cared, this would not be a negotiation. This would be a collaboration. Do you think this is a collaboration? Does this sound to you like it's a collaboration? Does it sound to you like the players think that it's a collaboration? No. This is owners on one side. This is labor on the other side. And if you, Malcolm Jenkins, look like you were on the side of management when you're supposed to be representing labor, whoo, buddy, everything you're trying to do can very easily go up in smoke. All right, 888-729-3776. That's our telephone number. Coming up next, Jimbo Fisher threw out the Christmas tree. He's leaving Tallahassee. We'll talk to Corey Clark of the Tallahassee Democrat to find out what happens next on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. All guests join us on the Shell Penzo Performance Line, just like our next guest. He covers Florida State athletics at the Tallahassee Democrat. His name is Corey Clark. So, Corey, did you know it was real that Jimbo Fisher was gone when you saw the Christmas tree on his curb?
That was the final straw, right? My man's not going to even be here for Christmas, just throwing it out willy-nilly in the yard. Yeah, that was a pretty good indication, I guess, that maybe he wasn't planning on being in that house in December.
The way that works, though, I remember when LeBron left Miami, my buddy saw when he had the car carrier come. He was like, no, those things carry like 6 cars. He's gone. And then it turned out that he was gone. I wanted to know why they bought the Christmas tree in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, they had to know it was coming. It kind of looks like an artificial fake tree. And, I mean, you can't be throwing fake trees out in the yard. That's not how we do things. But it kind of, when you look at it, it looks like he might have just thrown a fake tree out in the yard, just as a symbol.
We're talking to Corey Clark of the Tallahassee Democrat here on The Right Time. So why do you think Jimbo decided to leave? This sort of thing is fairly unprecedented.
Yeah, man, and, I talk to a lot of people that aren't really inside the vacuum that's the question. It's like, how do you leave Florida State for Texas A&M? I mean, I know A&M's got a lot of money and great facilities, but they hadn't won a national championship since The Wizard of Oz was out in theaters, like literally 1939. So Jimbo's always complained about things here behind the scenes, whether it was the boosters, whether it was the facilities, the infrastructure, and they gave him pretty much everything he ever asked for. Now, sometimes he had to ask not so politely, but he always ended up getting what he wanted. And I think this time he had something else he was asking for. And they're just like, we're not doing this anymore. You can't do this to us every year. So they didn't up their ante to what A&M was offering or even close, and I think at that time he just took off.
Well, is this also a matter of how can you walk away from $7.5 million a year?
Well, I mean, look, it's easy for me to say you should stay and be loyal. I mean, $75 million over 10 years, that's real. That's a lot of money that to just kind of shrug your shoulders at. At the same time, now he wasn't getting on. They weren't getting him on the cheap down here. I mean, he had a $40 million buyout, $44 million when he signed it. So they had put a lot of money in him, and I think at that point it's like, for Florida State's perspective, anyway, it's like, okay, how do we give a guy a raise that just went 5-6? You know, that kind of sets a bad precedent too, where you're just going to have to give him more and more every offseason is the way it was looking, or he was going to go to an SEC West school.
All right, we're talking to Corey Clark of the Tallahassee Democrat here on the Right Time. Now, how do fans remember the time of Jimbo Fisher being there? Because at once he's the guy that followed the legend, but he actually won a national championship, but it was an inconsistent tenure. Yeah,
it was. You know, he had the great, unbelievable team of 2013, which will go down as one of the best in college football history. And nice, obviously an undefeated season in 14, a pretty good season in 12. And other than that, you know, other than the Jameis Winston years, it was good but not great. And I think that's how he's going to be perceived. But also, you know, as soon as the sting of this wears off and the bitterness kind of – because the way the last week was handled was really ugly. But once that wears off, I think they're going to really appreciate what he did, if they don't already, because, I mean, it was really struggling in 07, 08, and 09. I wrote about it today. You know, Gary Danielson, he called Tim Tebow's senior day against Florida State, said it was like the JV versus the varsity. Compare Florida State to the JV team. Well, Jimbo flipped that real quick, and they won 7 out of 8 against Florida. He won 7 out of 8 against Miami. So when you go 14-2 against those two in-state rivals, either if they're down or not, that's a big deal. And I think over time it's going to be remembered very fondly and favorably. It's just it was a really ugly exit.
All right, talking to Corey Clark of the Tallahassee Democrat here on the Right Time. Now we've got the question of where they are going to go next with their head coaching search. What are you hearing down on the ground?
Well, I think everybody's hearing it that Willie Taggart at Oregon is the number one priority. Obviously, he's shown he can recruit in Florida. He's shown he can build a program in Florida. And when he's been out at Oregon and he's had his starting quarterback, that offense has been dynamic. So I think that's really exciting. After that, I mean, it's, you know, you hear Fuente from Virginia Tech. The thing about Florida State, and I think what lends itself to the fans being so frustrated these last 3 years, is it felt like their head coach didn't appreciate being here, that he was always using it for leverage, and he was tolerating being here. Well, Florida State's a destination job. Part of that's because Jimbo made it one again, but also just the tradition and history and everything else. The facilities are nice. They're getting better. So, I mean, they can have their pick of almost anyone in the country. There's maybe 15 or 20 schools that might have a head coach that would say no. You got to figure everybody else is in play if they want to go. But I would say Taggart's number one with a bullet, and he's obviously, I think, the biggest target in their eyes.
Now, our guy Mark Schlabach has reported that Stan Wilcox, the athletic director, wants to hire a minority head coach. Have you heard anything like that in Tallahassee?
I have not. No, I haven't. I think, honestly, he wants to hire the best coach, and it happens to be a minority at this time. That's my feeling. I've talked to Stan on the record and off the record, and that's never been brought up to me as a hiring a hiring aspect. It just so happens that Taggart's the best choice. I don't think if Taggart says no, that he immediately goes to another minority candidate. I think you can't do that. You just go to the best candidate. It so happens, in my mind, that the best candidate right now is the guy at Oregon.
Now, this is an awkward thing because college football and hiring a coach's race has always been an issue. It's kind of hard to avoid. Is Florida State a place that's ready for a black head coach?
Yeah, I mean, they have a black AD, and they have a black basketball. Leonard Hamilton's been here for 15 years. Heck, they're going to have a black head coach tomorrow with Odell Higgins. And if you knew the reaction of Florida State fans getting to see Odell Higgins be the head coach tomorrow, because he's been here for 30 years. He played with Deion Sanders. He's been coaching here for 20 years. No, I think Florida State fans would be more than happy with one. I don't think that – I really don't. Maybe I'm being naive, but I don't think that would be an issue at all.
All right, we're talking to Corey Clark of the Tallahassee Democrat here on the Right Time. Now, we talked a little bit, you talked about this being a job that maybe only 15 other guys would pass up. Are you surprised, though, with Jimbo Fisher passing up LSU last year and then winding up at Texas A&M?
I mean, right, when you think about it, if you're going to leave Florida State, isn't that the play to make? I mean, he coached there. He knows you can win national championships there. That's happened since they've invented color TV. So we know you can win national championships at LSU. So, yes, I am. I think, I don't know if he tried to use this again for leverage because he really wanted to stay at Florida State, but he thought they needed to up what they were doing, or if he really just is looking for something fresh. Last year, again, the last 2 years when LSU came calling, he was coaching Dalvin Cook, and he had 10-win seasons. Well, this year he had 6 losses, and he's losing a lot of really good players. So maybe that has something to do with it too. And he was also going to have to fire assistant coaches. That was definitely on the table, and that's not something he had to do the last 2 years. So all that kind of ties into it. Maybe it was just easier for him to make a clean break and go elsewhere. But, yes, if I'm Jimbo Fisher, man, if I could have been coach out of the 3 places, Tallahassee, Baton Rouge, or College Station, how do you end up in College Station? Well, sorry, $75 million is a big part of that.
Talking to Corey Clark, the Tallahassee Democrat, here on The Right Time. Last question before we go, talking about this thing with Willie Taggart, is it possible that this could wind up being kind of like Mark Richt leaving Georgia and going to Miami and a move that works out great for everybody?
Man, I think so. And it's funny. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a Seminole fan who was talking about how if Jimbo did come back at this point, he was going to be disappointed. Florida State fans had kind of soured on him a little bit. The program obviously wasn't good this year. The offense is kind of boring. It's been boring. It hasn't been great since Jameis left, and they're wondering it's trending in the wrong direction. So I think they just need. I think Florida State fans are genuinely excited about the prospect of something fresh and different, while also appreciating what Jimbo did, because Jimbo accomplished a great deal, and again gave them one of the all-time best college football teams in history. But I think everybody's looking for a fresh start. I think it could be good for Texas A&M, and I really think it could be good for Florida State, depending on who they bring in.
Now, what you are going to miss, though, is having a head coach named Jimbo, because there's something fun about just referring to him as Jimbo.
In every column, I would catch myself. Usually you write the last name of whoever you're quoting. But in my columns, I would always just quote him as Jimbo. It's fun to write. It's fun to say. And, yeah, now he's off in College Station.
All right, that is Corey Clark. Check him out at the Tallahassee Democrat covering Florida State sports. Thanks so much, my man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Bomani. I appreciate it, bud.
All right, now ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Now you can test drive Snapshot even if you have insurance with another company. See how much you can save before you switch.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. All guests join us on the Shell Penzo Performance Line. Thanks to Corey Clark of the Tallahassee Democrat for joining us last segment. Ken Fahey will be in studio with us in the 6 o'clock Eastern hour. Ring in the holiday season with bouquets for your friends and loved ones from 1-800-Flowers.com. When you order a dozen assorted roses for $29.99, you get an extra bouquet for free. To order, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. A little earlier in the show, man, I said that I don't think College Station is the greatest place in the world. Shannon, our phones blew up with people from Texas trying to tell me how dope College Station was. One of them was from Montgomery, and the other one was in College Station. I feel like they missed the point.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect anything less from those good folks there at College Station.
Yeah, we'll talk about that more. But I was like, my point was, you may like it, but are your sensibilities more important in this in recruiting football players, or are they a little bit more important? Anyway, I wish those dudes would call back. I want to hear them tell me everything. Tell me about the additions that they have made to the Dixie Chicken. I would love to hear it. Anyway, Tiger back. Shannon, Tiger shot 68 today. Tiger shot a 68 today. This is coming up to 69 he shot yesterday.
He strung together 2 good days of golf. I'm just saying. 2 straight.
Is it possible that this is the weekend that Tiger Woods puts it all together? Now that we no longer have Darren McFadden in the NFL, we need somebody else that we waiting on to put it all together. Could it be Tiger Woods? Could it be? By the way, Tiger Woods is 5 shots off the lead. Like, our level of excitement about this has absolutely nothing to do with the competition that's at play. We're just so happy that Tiger Woods went out there and did not injure himself. Ain't good enough for me. Good enough for me. I've been hitting people with the longest. Look, Tiger ain't coming back. Like, he might get better. He might be decent, but back. It ain't going to be back, right? Tiger ain't going to get back. Bruh. I want him back so bad. Like, I'm now totally this guy. In part because I'm rooting for my show, but also, here's the thing I think we forget about in losing Tiger Woods. We didn't replace him with anything, right? So it took a little while, but you think about it like you go from Michael Jordan to Kobe to LeBron or whatever. Like, we've gone from superstar to superstar to superstar. We've kept somebody like in the limelight in that way that we always think about. And you go through this in football. Football rotates them dudes in and out all the time, right? They do it fast. Okay, cool. We just lost Tiger and didn't get anything back. Like, we got this benefit of having Tiger Woods, right? We got this benefit. But we never replaced it. It's not like golf got some other dude there, and they tried, man. They tried to get us on all kinds of young guns. They tried to get us all excited about old boring Jordan Spieth. We tried to get it cracking with Rory McIlroy. That didn't really happen, all of that stuff. But we never replaced Tiger Woods. Like, for those of us who were of an age where that's kind of like a formative period for us, we just have this chasm where there's been nothing there to replace it. Maybe he can be the one just for a weekend, man. Just for a weekend. That's all I want is one good major championship weekend.
But you said a major. I think I want a particular major.
Oh, you want the Masters?
Oh, I want the Masters, absolutely.
Yeah, we all want the Masters. We all want the Masters. The Masters is the one we want in part because the Masters give us like those Jack Nicklaus memories. And, quiet as his cap. Jack Nicklaus won that Masters at 46 in 1986. Shannon, Tiger Woods is 42. Or he turns 42 this year, one of the two.
That means he still has time. Like, this is it. He's building the momentum, Bo. He started to put together a couple good days here, start to string together a couple good tournaments, lead his way, build up some momentum as he heads to the Masters. I'm telling you.
I just want him to win the Masters because the Masters have done everything they possibly could to make it such that he could not win. Go look at all the left-handers that have won the Masters in recent years and go see that left-handers were not winning the Masters until they Tiger-proofed the course. They did everything they could. They're like, okay, so what does Tiger not do well? Okay, what's hard for Tiger to do? All right, we're going to make the course do that thing right there. That quietly is like the most gangster thing anybody has ever pulled off. He broke the club. He also, by the way, he hadn't won the Masters since 2005. I want to say his last major was the 2008 U.S. Open where he played with the broken leg. But the Masters, he would come close. He still had a lot of top five finishes. He even had a top five finish coming after at least one after the driveway thingy, right? Like he already had that one. Man, if he can come back out there and get that one more time, whoo, boy. You know who'll be happy about that? President. You see that? Tiger would play golf with the president. Who was surprised? Who was surprised? No one was surprised. I don't think there's anybody else that could cause less of an uproar by hanging out with him other than like Peyton Manning and Kirk Cousins. In fact, I feel like Tiger Woods is like, how come I didn't get to go play with with Peyton Manning? I would have liked to have met him. Kirk Cousins, oh yeah, that's my dude. That's what's up. Yeah. Gamer, scrappy. Anyway, let's get this going at the Masters, Tiger. Do it for us. Do it for the people. Hey, do it for ESPN. We could use the help. All right, 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. Coming up next. So Jimbo's getting $7.5 million a year. How many wins is that worth for Texas A&M? ESPN Radio.
Thanks for listening to the Right Time Podcast. Please come back Monday for more. And don't forget to listen to The Right Time with Bomani Jones from 4 p.m. to 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Buying tickets to sports and concerts can be complicated, but there is a better, simpler way to buy with SeatGeek. SeatGeek is the smartest, easiest way to get tickets to live events. With SeatGeek's seamless mobile experience, you can buy and sell tickets in just 2 taps. SeatGeek helps you find the best seats at the best prices, fully guaranteed. There's nothing quite like seeing your favorite team or musician in person, and SeatGeek will get you closer to the action for a great value. I have the SeatGeek app on my phone, and it's by far the easiest way I've found to shop for tickets. I could be anywhere, and with just a few taps, I can instantly find seats. I actually used SeatGeek to buy tickets to go see the Marlins and experience the whole thing. It was fantastic. SeatGeek is designed to make your ticket buying experience easier than ever. SeatGeek saves you time and money by searching multiple ticket sites to compare prices and find amazing deals. Plus, every purchase is fully guaranteed, so you can shop for tickets on SeatGeek with confidence. Best of all, my listeners get $20 off their first SeatGeek purchase. Just download the SeatGeek app and enter promo code BOMANI today. That's promo code BOMANI for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase.
Hello, the Internet. It's Jack O'Brien, the founder and former editor-in-chief of Crack.com and the host of the new comedic news podcast, The Daily Zeitgeist, which, as the name suggests, is daily and sporadically in German. If you like Cracked, How Stuff Works podcasts and want to get your news from some of the smartest and funniest comedic and journalistic minds around, well then, this show is going to make you all over the place.
Yeah, I don't think we can use that.
Sure we can. Go to Apple Podcasts to listen and subscribe.
Welcome to the Right Time Podcast. The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. You can send us a tweet at the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. That is at Bomani_Jones. I want to update you on something right fast. We had talked a little earlier about the Tennessee job, and we had the athletic director situation where John Currie has been fired, and we noticed that the president has said that he had been suspended and that Philip Fulmer had been given the job. And I was like, oh, suspended? That seems to be interesting. Shannon, it appears that Tennessee is trying to fire him for cause.
What?
They try to get that money back. They owe the dude $5.5 million over a span of 4 years and change. What a disaster. Again, they have so far spent $13 million to find a new coach, and they still don't have a new coach. Anyway, bowl season is looming. Tune in tonight for the Pac-12 Championship game presented by the 2018 Ford F-150. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and the ESPN app. All right, Jimbo Fisher got the job at Texas A&M. Jimbo Fisher got $7.5 million to work the job at Texas A&M. It is very difficult for many of us to come up with a circumstance under which we get $7.5 million a year for somebody and we turn it down. Now, Jimbo Fisher is, by getting this $7.5 million, testing one of the important tenets of the game of dominoes that I think is something that all of us could take in our lives, which is all money ain't good money. You dominoes players understand all money ain't good money. Okay, you got 15 by throwing that 5 on the end there. What if the man over there got big 5? Next thing you know, your 15 turning into that man's 20, and you might not be able to turn that into 25 yourself. Why? Because all money ain't good money. Is the $7.5 million that Jimbo is getting good money? I don't know. The reason I say this for Jimbo is those are, damn it, you better win a title prices at a school that has not won a title since 1939. You are asking a lot of the dude under those circumstances, but you get to ask a lot out of somebody when you pay them $7.5 million. That is what you get to do. And, buddy, if this thing doesn't turn around fast for Jimbo, they are going to be furious. They are going to be furious fast. But here's what I'm asking. Kevin Sumlin won about 8 games a year while he was at Texas A&M. And as I've said before, I think that Texas A&M is an 8-win school. Like, I think Dan Mullen, for example, absolutely outkicked what is to be expected at Mississippi State because he turned Mississippi State, in effect, into an 8-win school, a 9-win school sometimes. Hey, if I'm not mistaken, Dan Mullen turned them into a 10-win school one time. That's a lot to ask. How many wins is Jimbo Fisher going to have to get to keep people satisfied? What will it take? Like, if he does not win a national championship in the first 4 or 5 years of this deal, what is it going to take for people to be happy with what it is that he's going to be providing? I have no answer to this. There's no precedent for this. The closest precedent that you have to a guy that won a national championship somewhere going straight to another job, at least most recent, Johnny Majors going from Pittsburgh to Tennessee in 1977. Now, the thing about that, though, is that was when college football was a far more regional game. And that point is important because outside of Alabama, nobody in the SEC during that time period was winning national championships. I think Arkansas won one in 1964, but they weren't in the SEC at that point. But nobody in that conference was winning championships other than Alabama. Think about this. Bo Schembechler, as legendary as he is at Michigan, go look at what his record in Rose Bowls were. All they cared about was winning the Rose Bowl. The Big Ten did not win how many national championships did the Big Ten win between 1969 and 2002? The Big Ten, half. Michigan in 1997. They won half of one. It was a regional game. You could get away with that at that point. Ain't nobody letting you get away with that at this point if you are Jimbo Fisher. So, how many wins is this worth? My man Jake, I think he said this on Twitter. He's like, yo, they're paying Kevin Sumlin $10 million to go away. They are going to pay Jimbo Fisher, at least in the terms of his contract, $75 million to show up. It's $85 million. And the guy that just left, I don't think anybody would say he did a bad job. You could argue that he did not do as good a job as they wanted. And one thing is, I do not begrudge the ambition of college football fans. If you want your program to be better, if you think they can be better, go ahead. Try to make that work. All right, cool. Like, I really don't knock you on that. A&M hadn't finished in the top 25 since 2013. I understand why they believe that that's a place that they should be. I think that's a fair enough goal. Okay, yeah, go ahead and do that if that's what you want to do. But what's it going to take to keep somebody happy at $7.5 million a year if you're Jimbo Fisher? I don't have the answer for that. I have no idea what it's going to come down to. So for the money they were paying Sumlin, they were getting $8. How many are you going to get for $7.5? How many? Are you going to require 10 wins a year? Because 10 wins a year is a lot to ask out of anybody. 10 wins a year, it's about $7.5 million prices. I think there's something to that. So where do they go from here? And you got to do it in College Station. 888-729-3776. Talk to Reggie from Texas. Reggie, thanks for calling the right time.
Hey, Bomani.
Yeah, man.
Hey, look here, man. You right, ain't nothing in College Station, man. I don't know why people call it and act like it is, man. I'm right here near College Station. I'm just west of it, out here where the home of RG3. And we play them. Man, I live in a small town, and I'm going to a small town to play. Ain't nothing out in College Station but that football stadium. Tell them stop acting ignorant. Plus, you from Texas. You ain't got to justify yourself.
Hey, man, Reggie, I appreciate the call. And Shannon, we need to record that. Stop acting ignorant. I feel like that should be the motto of the show. Stop acting ignorant. You weren't ready for that for Reggie, were you?
I appreciate that, Reggie. Good look.
He made an interesting point there. He said, I ain't trying to go from no small town to another small town. Some people do want to do that, right? Like Larry Bird, for example, got to Indiana University. He looked around and was like, no, I need to get back to this small town. My man said, I ain't going from no small town to go to another small town.
My question, though, in regards to the Jimbo Fisher hire and Texas A&M, who did A&M fans think they were going to get that was better? Like, yeah, the 7.5 is a high number, but who were you going to get that was better at a lower price? If the 7.5 is too much, who were you going to get better at a lower price?
No, hold on. Texas A&M fans ain't complaining about that 7.5. It ain't their money. They are thrilled. They are excited. They finally believe that they have gotten the dude that is going to unlock all this potential that this program has had. He is going to unlock the potential that Jackie Sherrill was not able to unlock, even while he was cheating. He is going to unlock the potential that R.C. Slocum wasn't able to unlock, even though they got caught cheating. This is going to be the dude, right? Like, this is what they believe. And look, this is where I do give A&M credit. To your point, Shannon, what better coach were they going to be able to hire? Probably not one better than Jimbo. And Jimbo ain't flawless, but they probably weren't going to get a guy better than Jimbo. They went and they backed up the truck, and they did what was required to get the best head coach that they could get. You can't be mad at them for that. The question is, even with the best head coach they have, how good can you reasonably and realistically expect Texas A&M to be? Even with the best head coach that they could have expected to hire. And that I don't think anybody has the answer to. All the optimism about A&M is they got the best stadium, they got the best facilities. Well, they had that stadium for a while, and they never really got them anything. The facilities are good, and they might be the best, but I feel like the thing with facilities is great facilities are really good to have, but the problem is bad facilities. Like, bad facilities will hurt you more than great facilities will help you because so many people have great facilities. There's an arms race in that, but so many people have great facilities. It's when you're out there with the bad facilities, that's when you're going to have problems. Like, see North Carolina basketball at the turn of the 20th century. Bad facilities wind up being the thing. Once you step them things up, okay, now you're in line with everybody else. And if Jimbo did not like the situation that he had at Florida State with having to deal with boosters, what is he going to do with Texas A&M? Because the thing about the Texas schools as it relates to the booster class, and look, every school has its own booster class, and it has its own, there's different things that go on with different schools. Like Auburn has its own, like, crazy sort of booster class that you have to deal with. Tennessee, we've seen what's going on. Jimmy Haslam and that booster class that you got there. The issue with Texas and Texas A&M is the heavy preponderance of people with a whole bunch of money. It's not like Auburn, where Bobby Lauder for the longest was the booster that ran things. He was the dude that had the money. Jimmy Haslam, whose brother is the governor, by the way, he's the dude who has the money. At A&M, so many people have so much money. At Texas, so many people have so much money. That means that there are so many people that you have to glad hand. And if Jimbo didn't like having to glad hand the Florida State money class, the Texas A&M money class is going to drive him crazy. Hey, bowl season is looming. Tune in tomorrow for the Big 12 Championship game presented by the 2018 Ford F-150. Coverage begins at noon Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and the ESPN app. 888-729-3776. That's our telephone number. Coming up next. Oh, yeah, there's NFL games this weekend. We'll talk about those on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. Key and Fahey at presnapbreeze.com and the Nickel Package Podcast will join us next segment. Key and Fahey will join us at 6:30 Eastern. That's the old soul song of the day. Shot a swing my way. Bye. Shannon, you got a guess?
KP and Envy.
There we go.
Names.
There
yes.
we go. I forgot to look it up. I was like, damn. Like, Envy sounds familiar. I just remember one of them was white. That was the other one. I was like, damn, who are they? Where do they work these days? Somewhere that come on, they'd be like, I did that song. Anyway, why don't you ring up that my Coca-Cola so I can get it on up out of here? Hey, The Right Time is brought to you by Pennzoil Synthetics. Take a synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. All right. Guys, this is a fairly momentous weekend in the NFL. That's right. It is a fairly momentous weekend in the NFL. And you're wondering, gee, Bomani, what makes this weekend momentous? Guys, we have legitimately compelling games at the 1 o'clock slot, at the 4 o'clock slot, at the Sunday night slot, and at the Monday night slot. That's right. The Sunday afternoon game that is halfway compelling. I mean, Patriots-Bills. Honestly, Shannon, think about this. Patriots-Bills, which has playoff ramifications. I feel like we know how it's going to end, but we got that. We got Detroit and Baltimore, which, if you want to watch that, you can. It's, they're both 6-5. And we got Minnesota and Atlanta. That's a selection, a variety.
We got a NFL buffet going on right now.
Cornucopia. There we go. There you go, NFL. Way to set us up here. What we got going on at the 4 o'clock? Not only do we have the return of Geno Smith that I am sure that Shannon can't wait to watch, we got the Panthers and the Saints. Those are two, legitimately good teams. They're both at 8-3. They're fighting for the lead in their division. There you go, NFC South. Way to carry this for everybody. Shannon, then we have the Eagles and the Seahawks, and even though the Seahawks are a little beaten up and they got problems in their secondary, it's still the Seahawks. They're still going to be playing there. We got Russell Wilson. We got Carson Wentz. And then on Monday, we got the Steelers and the Bengals. And, okay, I'm reaching, but I think I'll watch it. I won't feel bad about myself if I turn on the television and that's what happens to be on. Okay, NFL. There you go. Maybe this will help bring up the ratings. Yeah.
But I think you mentioned, especially in the NFC South, that Carolina-New Orleans game is the one I'm really, really interested in seeing.
Yes, I am. I want to see that. Since Cam got it going after starting off, coming off that surgery early in the year. And, by the way, Shannon, have you noticed that the Panthers offense, as Kean told us it would, got better with Kelvin Benjamin left? Suddenly they're able to run the ball. What's his name? Christian McCaffrey getting up over 4 yards a carry fairly regularly in those circumstances. I don't know what it is that Kelvin Benjamin does or does not do, but it doesn't seem like it was helping the Panthers.
Both teams, both Saints and Panthers, are at 8-3 right now. The Panthers will be out Charles Johnson for the next 4 games.
But the old man PED suspension.
Yeah, man. But of those teams coming into this season, which one are you more surprised at 8-3 right now?
Oh,
we
had
questions about both. Yeah,
the Saints. I thought the Saints were done. I thought that run had ended. Why are you still doing this Sean Payton thing? They went and reloaded. And remember when they signed Adrian Peterson? I think granted, Peterson's not there. But when they signed Adrian Peterson, we're like, yo, they don't even play like that. What do you mean you got Adrian Peterson? Y'all don't even do that. And then they started playing like that. They are mashing people out on the ground. So this is what's going to be interesting about this is shaping up to be a smash mouth sort of football game, which I think the Saints need to lean toward because Drew Brees is getting older and those older dudes don't throw it as well as the season goes on, right? That's just not how that tends to go. So, no. We got a good game with that one. Looking at these noon games, though, or the 1 o'clock kicks, rather. Minnesota, Atlanta, I'm very interested in seeing this because, Minnesota's 9-2 with Case Keenum as starting quarterback, and I just don't know how long you can keep that up. I also feel pretty confident there's some people in the city of Houston that are looking at the Texans being like, see, told y'all not to get rid of Case. Case got one of those local mascot contracts that you get when you play college football locally and you put up big numbers, and then he wound up getting his chance to start, and then that didn't really crack, and then he went to the Rams, and then that didn't really crack, and now he's here. And, he's still not that good, but he got that thing to crack. If they go 10-2 with Case Keenum as their starting quarterback, it will once again make me ask people, yo, how much do you feel like you need out of your quarterback? in order to build a team? How much do you feel you're going to need out of your quarterback? The Vikings are paying 3 of them. Like, I'm sure they're paying Case Keenum pocket change, but they're paying Teddy Bridgewater and they're paying Sam Bradford. They're paying 3 quarterbacks. And they still managed to build this team that's good enough to win with Case Keenum as Case Keenum is, as Case Keenum has been. Hey, man, all right, we got that one. Also, do we know if the Falcons are good? I've been trying to figure this out basically all season long. Like, they've come off a little better from, the terrible heartbreak that they suffered in the Super Bowl. Heartbreak I told you was going to happen. Heartbreak that I saw from years and years and years away. Heartbreak you should have known was coming, you dummies. They're the Falcons. They're going to hurt you. That's what they do. That's all it's in the corporate motto, basically. But anyway, do we know if they're good? Like, do we know? I'm looking right now. Here are the wins that they have, Shannon. You tell me which one of them impresses you. The Bears, the Aaron Rodgers Packers, the Lions, the Jets, the Cowboys, the battered Seahawks, and the Buccaneers.
I think the beatdown of the beatdown of the Packers was probably the most impressive win of the season.
Yeah, that's a long time ago, wasn't it? Like, I don't feel like any of us have a great answer as to how good this team is. We are going to find out a lot this weekend. Devontae Freeman is going to be back, but Desmond Trufant will not be playing because he's in that concussion protocol. So we have that one. The Sunday night game, I guess for Seattle, every game for Seattle is playing for their lives because I feel like every game that they win, they need to be kind of lucky. Like, is that fair to say? If your defensive line is decimated and your secondary is decimated and you don't have a running game and your offensive line ain't hitting on nothing, I feel like a lot of things have got to break right in order for you to get what it is that you're looking for. Meanwhile, the Eagles are 10-1, but would you like to talk about another team that is not really sitting on a bunch of impressive victories? Now, you can't knock them because they wouldn't be the only team that hasn't really played anybody that's that impressive, but they are the only one, as far as I can tell, that's won 10 out of their 11 games. But let's look at who the Eagles are beating. Washington, the Giants, the Chargers, who they barely beat, the Cardinals, the Panthers. Now, the Panthers is one that you can hold your hat on. Washington again, San Francisco, Denver, the Cowboys, and the Bears. Like, they could stand, shall we say, a test. The problem is I don't know if this counts as a test. Any other year going to Seattle, we would say that counts as a test. I don't know if this counts as a test. Now, next week when they go out to play the Rams, that will count as a test. And then after that, the Eagles don't have any real games to play. They got a game against the Raiders. They got a game against the Cowboys. Oh, my bad. They have to go and play in that hornet's nest known as MetLife Stadium. Shadow, they'll have to play the Giants. Do you think the Giants could be spoilers?
He's going to try to, slide that in, huh?
I'm just asking. They did it to the Chiefs.
I'm saying, it's Friday. You know what I'm saying? We got about almost, about a half an hour left of the show. You're going to slide that in right at the end, huh, Bo?
They did it to the Chiefs.
You don't think we talked about the Giants enough this week? You're going to slide that in at the end of the week for me, huh?
I'm just saying, after they did it to the Chiefs, right. Eagles got to be on swivel. They got to be on watch. Forgive me for entertaining the possibility your sorry little football team might win a game. Would you prefer I not consider the possibility they could win a game, Shannon? Is that what it is? You would prefer I not consider that possibility?
Anything can happen every week in the NFL, Bo.
That's right. Are they still striving for great at 8-8?
Oh, no, it's a wrap now. We chosen for Rosen now.
Oh, that's right. I got the 2-9. Got to come up with a whole new slogan. Whoops. All right. No, Sid, Gino going to mess around and win some games and mess up your draft pick situation, Shannon. Gino going to come out here and save his career and make y'all hate him.
I wouldn't call it messing up our draft situation. We're currently in the process of evaluating our quarterback position moving forward.
Huh? You out here taking notes, too. You scouting?
That's right. We are evaluating our quarterback position. That may or may not include quarterbacks who are currently on the roster or are in the NFL right now.
I love it. Everybody becomes a scout when their team's out of the playoffs because all you doing is looking for quarterbacks. All right, coming up next, Ken Fahey has said that he would take Dak Prescott over Carson Wentz. We'll find out if he still feels that way on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. All guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, just like our next guest. Check them out at presnapreads.com. Also, the Nickel Package Podcast. In studio in scenic Bristol, Connecticut. His name is Ken Fahey. Ken, is Bristol everything you dreamed of?
Besides the headphones, maybe, yeah.
We're talking to Kid Fahey, PreSnapReads.com here on The Right Time. All right, so last night we had Dak Prescott playing with a busted hand. He didn't look so good there, but I think a lot of people get on you a lot about saying that you take Carson Wentz over Dak Prescott. Take Dak Prescott over Carson Wentz. Are you still in that same category after the year's played out?
Yeah, I tend not to overreact over a couple of weeks, and I don't think Dak has been the major issue. He had a couple of bad games, obviously, some clearly bad games. The Chargers game, it kind of got out of hand. I think there's something more interesting to it there, though, than just talking about Dak versus Wentz. Like we've kind of focused on Zeke's departure and his suspension and his impact on the offense. But if you kind of look at what happened last night with the running game, Alfred Morris was still pretty good. Rod Smith was pretty good as well. And it's because that offensive line is getting back healthy. Like Tyron Smith, he had one block last time where he actually dominated someone and just threw them on the ground and stood over them, basically laughing at him. And then you saw Zach Martin was healthy. He had a concussion last week. Lyle Collins was getting back to full health with back issues. And their left guard spot is still a bit of an issue, but Travis Frederickson playing better as well yesterday. I think the offensive line was the big issue there, and I know this is always going to be something that comes back to the quarterbacks, but that's just the way we do it. But that offense was built to run the ball and then throw off of the run, and when they were limited running the ball, it kind of put a guy like Terrence Williams into a position to be a possession receiver, something he's not capable of doing. Sure, Dak could play better, and actually, the interesting thing now, I only kind of thought of it after the game last night. Last year, around this time of the season, Dak had a little bit of a slump as well when he played the Giants for the first time. So this might be something that he kind of have to look out for with him. Does he just slump after a couple of months of the year?
Now, as you talk about the offensive line getting healthy, so are they a line that if they get healthy, that Alfred Morris can be good enough to get them through this suspension?
They can be, but we also have to realize that this offensive line is not the one that they had last year. Ronald Leary and Doug Free are both gone from the line, and obviously they're not the names. Guys like Tyron Smith and Travis Frederick and Zach Martin are the names, but those were two key pieces. That depth they had when Lyle Collins got hurt last year. Leary is a quality starter. He's in Denver now. Doug Free was a really controversial guy in Dallas, but it was like when you play next to 4 first-round picks and you're not a great player, you're not a physically talented player, you're not going to be getting celebrated. You're going to get more criticism than you deserve. And they've kind of found out this year that Doug Free was better than they realised, I think, because Lyle Collins has struggled a little bit more at right tackle. He's a run blocker, really. He's not a great pass blocker, although he held up pretty well against Ryan Kerrigan last night, so maybe that's a sign of his health and a little bit of development. I'm not hugely concerned about the Cowboys, and I think like their record, the way they are at the moment, that's probably going to hurt them and probably keep them out of the playoffs. But I also said that about the Chargers a month ago, and the Chargers right now are 1 game back, so you probably shouldn't listen to me.
We're talking to Key and Fahey, PreSnapReads.com here on The Right Time. Now, Shannon's Giants decided that Eli Manning did not need to be their starting quarterback anymore. How much can you tell about what his play has been this year, given how bad everything is around him?
You know, my favorite part of being a Bristol is me seeing Shannon's soul just jump out of his body when he heard the mention of the Giants. He's sitting in the corner shaking his head with his hand in his face. I completely missed your question just because I was laughing at Shannon. But I think the Eli benching is a little bit harsh, but I kind of understand it too, because like the season's over there. They've got nothing to move forward with. You could argue that Geno Smith starting doesn't really make sense, and it should be the younger guy, that Davis Webb, who they've got there. But Eli in general to me is kind of funny, because I see a lot of people talk about how he gets overrated, but I don't really see the people who are actually rating him. So maybe that's my bubble or whatever. But I've always found Eli to be underrated because he's played in that Kevin Gilbride offense where he's always pushed the ball downfield. He's always had to play under pressure and thrown to tight windows. And when McAdoo became the offensive coordinator, it changed the whole style. And that worked for a while. But the big mistake there, and it's been a mistake in Tampa Bay as well, I think, with Dirk Cutter, where they forced their offensive coordinator into a head coach role just to try and hold on to him, and he wasn't that important. They didn't have to keep Tom Coughlin, though, but they did have to go and get someone who kind of knew what they were doing, and I don't think McAdoo knows what he's doing.
All right, talking to Key and Fahey, Nickel Package Podcast here on The Right Time. Now, we got the Vikings and Falcons this week. You wrote an article on Case Keenum. What have you had to say about his play this year? Because he has exceeded expectation, if nothing else.
I think he had his 2 best games of the season in the last couple of weeks, and hopefully for the Vikings' sake that continues. And he threw a touchdown to Kyle Rudolph on a corner route against pressure that was phenomenal. It was probably his best play of the season. But overall, he's largely still been Case Keenum. He's still throwing the ball to defenders all the time. He's still missing easy throws. He still moves himself into pressure too often. But that's the quality of that Vikings supporting cast. And there, if you want to talk about offensive line play, that's a unit in Minnesota that is a serious upgrade on last year. Last year, they used to destroy every play they tried to run. This year, it's a versatile unit. It's very effective. They got Riley Reif at left tackle, who's phenomenal in pass protection this year, and they've got Pat Elflein at center, who's completely diversified their offense. I think it works right now, and I can understand why they're kind of riding with Keenum, but I think you can see that implosion game coming too. He's had 3 games this year with at least 3 interceptable passes. He's had 2 with 4. One of them was against Washington, where he threw the ball to DJ Swearinger twice in a row on 2 snaps, and that brought Washington back into that game. I'm concerned about the impending implosion, but I think I can understand as well why it's difficult to bench him.
All right, Tony Key and Faye here, PreSnapReads.com here on the Right Time. Now, we've got Panthers and Saints coming up on Sunday afternoon. What's been different with the Panthers offense since the Kelvin Benjamin trade?
Speed. It's all about speed. When you have Devin Funchess and Kelvin Benjamin outside, you've got 2 guys who you have to kind of carry a little bit. Now, Funchess has had a good year. He's been effective, but he's not a diverse player. He's not someone who's going to make plays after the catch. He's not going to take the top off the defense for the old cliche there. But you have when you have 2 of those guys, it's very hard to call an effective passing game. It's very hard to be diverse, like we just talked about with the Vikings. Like, compare them to the Vikings with Thielen and Diggs. Those guys can run any route. They can get open at any level. They can adjust at the catch point. They can make plays after the catch. When you've got Benjamin and you've got Funchess across from him, you've basically got 2 guys who have to win at the catch point and make tight contested catches all the time. And that's not really a way to build an offense. And once they got Benjamin out of there, it's really opened up everything. Christian McCaffrey's usage out of the backfield, moving him outside, even on running plays, they're using better running plays with McCaffrey now, and the whole offense just looks a lot better. Actually, my concern there, weirdly, because it's been the total opposite for the past few years, my concern there is Cam, because Cam is the least consistent player in the NFL this year.
Like, how wild has the variance been on his play?
There's been games this year where McCaffrey, I think he's cost McCaffrey maybe 5 touchdowns this year. Like, there's been plays where McCaffrey's been wide open 5 yards downfield in the flat after making an unbelievable double move to make a linebacker fall over, make him miss, and Cam will just airmail the ball 10 yards over his head. And it was happening at the start of the season, and it's also something people have said about Cam over the course of his career, but I've always felt it's been overstated. This year, it's really felt real. It's felt like his accuracy issues are there, and maybe it's part of the shoulder, but we're at the point in the season now where we shouldn't be talking about his shoulder injury from before the year. At this stage, he should be healthy, and at this stage, he should be playing better than he is. And it's such a weird position to be in, because Cam has been carrying those teams with Ted Ginn and Corey Brown and a bunch of random players that no one really knows.
All right, Tony Kim and Fahey, PreSnapReads.com. All right, we got the upside matchup of the week. The Eagles' defensive line against the Seahawks' offensive line. What do you see there?
Oof. This is like the best defensive line maybe, but besides the Vikings in football, going against probably the worst offensive line with Jermaine Ifedi. Like, the Seahawks traded for Dwayne Brown, and Dwayne Brown's a really good player, but he's an old player, and he's not someone who's going to completely alter the identity of the offensive line, and that line has just been decimated over and over and over again this year. It's gotten a little bit better as the season has gone on, but this Eagles unit, you've got a first-round pick there in Derek Barnett who gets snaps, but he's only a rotation player, and that's not because of him being a rookie or him needing to learn the defense or anything like that. It's just the quality of the pass rushers they have, the quality of the depth they have. Fletcher Cox is an absolute monster, and he should be on Russell Wilson all day.
All right, that is Key and Fahey. Check them out, PreSnapReads.com. Also, the Nickel Package Podcast. Enjoy the States, man. Glad to have you here.
Thanks, man.
All right, now, get a better business travel experience and a free pair of Bose SoundLink wireless headphones for trying Upside.com this holiday season. Just use code Bomani at Upside.com. You deserve a better business trip. Minimum purchase required. See site for complete details.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Our guests joined us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Thanks to Key and Fahey at PreSnapReads.com for joining us last segment. Thanks to Corey Clark of the Tallahassee Democrat for joining us in the 5 o'clock Eastern Hour. Thanks to Cam Stewart with his NFL picks in the 4 o'clock Eastern Hour. And thanks to Mark Schlabach of ESPN in the 4 o'clock Eastern Hour. Remember, if you miss anything live, check out the Right Time Podcast, available on the ESPN app. All right, 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. All right, Shannon, what we miss out on today?
We know you can't be on top of all the news and information of the day. Now, if you haven't heard.
All right, Jimbo Fisher leaving Florida State, headed to Texas A&M. Of course, that's the big news of the day, and I'm not saying just because we would normally joke Tennessee, but Jimbo Fisher headed to Texas A&M. And if you haven't heard, here's Bomani Jones early today on The Right Time discussing Fisher headed to Texas A&M and why he definitely has championship. It's championship or bust for Jimbo at A&M.
The demand here is a national championship, and I can't blame anybody around that program if they demand a national championship out of Jimbo Fisher after all the money they're paying him. The only problem is they haven't won a national championship since 1939, and nothing really has changed. This isn't like Florida, which had never won the SEC before Steve Spurrier. A lot of things happened in the state of Florida. It's not even like Florida State, where a lot of things happened at Florida State, like they were at all-women's college until the 40s, and then they hired Bobby Bowden. But like Miami, all those Florida schools, there was a population boom that took place at that time in Florida. And on top of that, there's a little thing called integration. It's a really big deal. Kind of changed the landscape. A whole lot of things. The only thing that's really changed for Texas A&M is that they went to the SEC. I don't think that's really the structural change that people are talking about that's really going to make things happen. So they can pump all that money into the program that they want to. They still going to be in College Station. And that is not a plus in your recruiting. It's just not. I don't make the rules, man, but that's not a plus in your recruiting. And the question is going to be, how many players are you able to get in there? And then once those players are there, the tie-breaking factor is, can you get the most out of them? Jimbo Fisher built a machine for 2013 that was as talented as any college football team has ever been. It's legitimately up there with that 2001 Miami team in terms of raw talent that he had on the team in 2013. He had that. I don't think you can put that kind of machine together at Texas A&M. It is that kind of machine that was required for Florida State to win a national championship with Jimbo. Keep it in mind that they almost found a way to lose that game. Can you put that? Just because you can get it done at Florida State doesn't tell me anything about what it is that you can do at Texas A&M. And now with this salary and everything else, you ratcheted up the expectations, honestly and truly, to Alabama levels. Because Alabama's the only place that demands national championships at the rate that I think that Texas A&M is going to demand them now that they paid $7.5 million. They've been waiting their whole lives for something like this, Jimbo. You damn well better be what they dreamed of.
Is there any middle ground at all for Texas A&M with this Fisher hiring and the $7.5 million a year? Any middle ground? Is it championship or else?
Okay, so let's think about this for a second. Remember, Shannon, all those people telling you that Tennessee's not a good job, and then they're going to tell you how good a job Texas A&M is, right? Now, I think you can make a fair argument if you wanted to that Texas A&M is the third best job in the SEC West after Alabama and LSU. Maybe Auburn is like somewhere in there or whatever. At Tennessee, they're like, look, we just like to go to the SEC championship game 2 or 3 times every 10 years. That ain't $7.5 million worth of performance. So what are we going to get here?
What's a better job, though, of the two, A&M and Tennessee? Which one's a better job?
Ooh.
Yeah, which one's a better job?
That's interesting. I think the ceiling is higher at Tennessee than it is at Texas A&M. I still think the ceiling is higher.
All right, moving on to Tennessee, where they've had a tough week. There's been a couple things this week on the right time that we take great pleasure in. Of course, we had the chain snatching this week. We had that situation that happened with Eli Manning and the Giants. But then there's Tennessee, who bungled their way, thankfully for us, all the way through this week. Woo! And now they have Phil Fulmer as their AD, welcome back, who strong-armed the previous AD. You think we're going to get a coaching hire from Tennessee before the season starts? Before next season starts?
That's a good question. Keep in mind, we're talking about the coaching carousel right now. The regular season isn't even over. Like, you realize how crazy this is right now? We got games tomorrow that we haven't even bothered to consider because of all the madness that is going on around this. So, like, Tennessee, there's really no rush right now. You might as well chill and hang out, just see how it goes. I have no idea how long it's going to take and who Phil Fulmer is ultimately going to hire. Will it be himself? Is there a chance he hires himself? I mean, he's the AD. He can do that.
Didn't Alvarez do that at Wisconsin?
For bowl games. He makes himself the interim guy. Yes. Yeah, and pays himself handsomely.
This is how interesting today has gone. We've had the Florida State situation. We've had Tennessee. We have had no time to discuss Ole Miss and get in their scholarship reduction and Hugh Freeze and the cause. Like, we've had no time for that. Also, once we knew Ole Miss was going on probation, they died to us. It didn't matter anymore. We're like, yeah, we knew that would happen. Party over. And last, but certainly not least, former NBA player Kermit Washington has pleaded guilty to 3 felonies and admits to taking over $225,000. So if Kermit Washington gets some jail time, think anybody in the pen gonna mess with him? That's what I was about to say. He's gonna find out the hard way. I just tell you this: let that man have his bologna sandwich. All right, if that man wants to eat his bologna sandwich, let him eat his bologna sandwich. If he wants to eat yours, I might recommend you do that too. And whatever you do, do not run up behind Kermit Washington. He got a reflex when people do that. You might get your face broke. But ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us here on The Right Time. We do this every weekday, 4 p.m. Eastern. Shannon, Nuno, Cat, thanks so much. USC and Stanford in the Pac-12 Championship coming up next.
Thanks for listening to The Right Time podcast. Please come back Monday for more. And don't forget to listen to The Right Time with Bomani Jones from 4 p.m. to 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.